And welcome to the Modern Meltdown. We're here with a comic book legend, an Eisner Award winner, the author of the much-loved Gotham Central.
One of them. Along with Ed Brubaker.
We have with us today Greg Rucka. How are you today, Greg?
I'm doing okay. We're late on the second day of the show here in Sydney, so I'm starting to feel the energy ebb. But, you know, it's been terrific. We did Brisbane last weekend, and that was wonderful. And yesterday was very busy, a lot of people. So, you know, in Australia, it's been terrific. This is my second trip, and I've loved it each time. So it's nice to be here.
That's fantastic. Now, I am one of my personal favorites, of course, is Gotham Central.
You are a man of taste.
Thank you. When you were writing those books, was it interesting taking the perspective of the everyday, ordinary citizens of Gotham?
Was it interesting? I don't know. You'll have to tell me if it was interesting. Was it difficult to write? No, not really. Because I've always found, especially with Batman, he is so well covered. So many writers have approached him over the years in so many different ways. You know, I'm one of many of drops in that bucket. I always find him far more interesting when he's seen through somebody else's eyes. And I think maybe simply because of the nature of the way I write, it was really rather, I wouldn't say simple, but it was less of a challenge than you might think to try to put myself in the mindset of what he looks like to somebody who, you know, to somebody to whom Batman appears as Batman wants to appear, which is nebulous, frightening, and somewhat indeterminate and almost omniscient. You know, I mean, he's not there, and then he's there, and then the Joker's there, and then it's over, and you're like, what happened? You know, when you're in a Batman story and it's told from his point of view, you lose a lot of that mystique. And I mean, the best way I can think of it is, and there's no good art to illustrate this around us. You'll see two depictions of Batman. You'll see one depiction of Batman where you can see every single rippling muscle in hyper definition, right? And he's so well rendered, and there's nothing to the imagination. And then you'll see sometimes these depictions of Batman where it's like two ears in darkness and all of this shadow. And that's Batman is, to me, by far the more interesting one. You know, I don't need to know how many sit-ups he does. I don't want to know how many sit-ups he does. Because all that's been covered ad nauseum. That he can do these things, and that to so many people, they don't know what he is. That, to me, is sort of the power of that mythology. So.
And you got to cover that from the policeman's perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Where they're like, we don't know if he's on our side or not. I mean, if you think about it, if you really sit down and you think about it, and you're a cop in Gotham City, and you're an honest cop in Gotham City, Batman's really problematic. In multiple ways, not the least of which being his existence, day to day, is proof that you're not doing your job. You know, for whatever reason, however it's come to pass, you know, in the mythology, because Gotham is notoriously corrupt or whatnot, you're overmatched and you're outmanned. So you need the help of this guy. And you're glad you have it, but at the same time, it's got to be kind of like getting poked in the eye, you know? Oh, great, Batman solved it, you know?
It's interesting you bring up that point. I remember during the No Man's Land storyline, when Jim is talking to Sarah, and he's saying, there was one stage there where I tried to get work as a commissioner somewhere else in New York City, but they laughed me out of town because I had to have a caped vigilante helping me fight crime. So that's a really interesting perspective. Now,
you want to invest it. Look, superhero comics are fable and they're fantasy, but you can't. I mean, to the people within them, they're not. You know, to the people in those stories, that's their reality. And you not only insult your audience, but you destroy the power of the stories if you remove that. If you wink and you nod and you go, oh, it's a little silly, really. You know, he's wearing his underpants on the outside. And you sit there and you go, like, if that's your issue, you have bigger problems.
Yeah.
You know, if you're hanging up on the costume, then this is not for you. You know, so
you've been pretty prolific in comics for a long time now. You've approached many characters from many angles.
yeah.
To date, what have you been the most proud of working on?
It's very hard to answer. You're asking anything about mainstream work. You know, I will always be incredibly proud of Gotham Central. I will always be incredibly proud of the work that J.H. Williams and I did on Batwoman and Detective Comics. Some of the work that I was able to do on Wonder Woman, I'm very, very proud of. You know, it's very difficult to narrow those down for me. I am either very lucky or very self-deluding in my belief that most of the work that I've done to this day I'm pretty proud of. You talk about creator-owned work, I'm incredibly proud of Lazarus. I'm incredibly proud of Black Magic that nobody's seen yet. I'm very, very proud of Queen and Country. I'm doing Stumptown right now through Oni Press, which is an ongoing PI series that's creator-owned. Myself and the artist on that is Justin Greenwood, and he's phenomenal. You know, so, you know, one would hope that were you to ask any other writer that question, they would say, you know, I'm proud of the work that I do. And I feel like that's sort of a half answer, but in all sincerity, I mean, you know, there's some stuff I look at and I go, it didn't quite land the way I wanted it to land. But I am really fortunate. I mean, I've been fortunate, in particular the last 4 or 5 years, the collaborators I've been privileged to work with, the projects I've been privileged to work with them on. I think that they're genuinely books that I am not ashamed of. I'm eager to put in other people's hands to see them read them. So,
and of course, speaking about creator-owned, you're about to embark on a new journey with Image for Black Magic.
Yeah, with Nicola.
Yep, we actually got to speak with Nicola as well, which you can check out on our YouTube channel.
Yes, and you should, because Nicola is wonderful in all ways.
Absolutely, totally agree. Now, do you want to tell our audience a little bit more about the book and what to expect?
Well, no, because I don't like giving spoilers. What is Black Magic? Black Magic is the story of a detective named Rowan Black, who is the latest in a very long line of traditional witches, what's called a trad witch. And she traces a legacy back almost 6,000 years. And it is sort of the story about what happens when her professional and her spiritual lives find themselves colliding in an unpleasant and very immediate way. And it goes from there.
What themes were you hoping to address in this book that maybe you haven't had the opportunity to yet?
That's not an easy one to ask. Mostly because I'm not 100% sure what the best answer is. Magic is often described as the imposition of the individual's will on reality. And if you then accept a narrative where magic is real, where that is possible, you by definition are creating a reality where the will of the practitioner overrides the will of others. So then the question becomes, well, what does it mean for one person to dictate an outcome to the others? And that in itself goes to another question, which is, magic notwithstanding, isn't that how we interact any day? You came up to me 10, 15 minutes ago, and your will was to do an interview, right? And you were going to do, to the best of your ability, what was required to implement that, right? You weren't going to tie me to a chair, but you were going to smile and be polite and say, would you have time to do this? You weren't going to walk up and say, hey, schmuck, I'm doing this thing, and here's my friend with a camera, sit down, shut up, and answer these questions. Because that was not going to get you the desired response, right?
Very true.
So it creates a very interesting question. What is the appropriateness of that sort of manifestation of will? At what point do we say it's too much? At what point do we call people manipulative for trying to exert their will on a situation? At what point is being manipulative, which is a very pejorative word, we use it in particular about women, right? We say, oh, she's manipulative. And we make that's a negative statement. Why is it negative? Why is it negative when that's what all advertising is? Right? And why are we willing to accept it from some forms of advertising and we get really angry at other forms? Right? We don't manipulate me, and we get really cheesed off. Right? In other cases, we go, that's really funny. And I know they're manipulating me, but I'll give them a pass. Right? I didn't actually want this box of Happy Cinnamon Toastios, but I was amused by the ad, and so I bought two. What the hell was I thinking? So I do think that one of the elements that we're really curious about is that where does will lie, and what are the limits of it, and who defends against that manipulation, and how can that manipulation be used for both good and for ill, and how can that manipulation be used for good intent, but resulting in an ill outcome. So.
That sounds incredibly interesting. I mean, like, from that...
I'm afraid it sounds almost doctrinal, and people are like, oh, I was interested in the book, and then he started talking about it, so...
No, it does speak a lot to our society at the moment. It was like you pointed out, why, and when you're being manipulated, how you respond to that is going to be different depending on the situation. Yeah. And to be able to explore that with these characters, I think it's going to reach some very interesting places. Yeah, I mean, and hopefully it'll be a good and entertaining story and a compelling one. Because at the end of the day, that's the goal, is to share a story that people are engaged by, that they want to invest in, and that they will stay with us throughout the journey of. So. And you've done creator-owned works before, as you pointed out. But is this exciting to be jumping on with Image when they seem to be doing very well with creator-owned properties? Well, Lazarus is an Image book, and that's been tremendous. Michael Lark and I have been doing that for almost 3 years now, with Santhi Arcas and Eric Troutman and Jody Wynn and Tyler Boss and Owen Freeman on our covers. There's a big team on that book. So, Image right now is a wonderful place to be. And there's no question about it. You get different dividends working at Image than, say, you do at Oni Press. And I love the guys at Oni. I've worked with Oni for, the better part of 15 years. Stumptown is an Oni book. And it is a creator-owned book as well. So I'm more heartened by the opportunities to be able to put creator-owned work out, get it published, see it published in ways where a broader audience can find it, because it used to be that you couldn't find it, and that if you wanted an Image book, you really were limited to one of like 6, 7, 8 titles, and finding the other works were much harder to do. So I think in that sense we're really at a very fortunate time in the industry, ironically, because we're coming out of a time when work for hire books, the big 2 publisher books, are becoming more and more. I think people are becoming really tired of them. I think that we're seeing a lot of the same thing over again, or a whole lot of new paints of coat on the same car when the engine really needs to be overhauled. So it's nice to see that there are options out there, and that readers are more cognizant of those options than they have been in the past, I think. Absolutely, I totally agree, as a comic book fan. Yeah. So, Black Magick is coming out when? October 28th. October 28th is issue 1. Available in both a comic format and in a magazine size edition as well, with extra material. Fantastic. So make sure you get onto that. Black Magick, Greg Rucka and Nicola Scott, coming out soon. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. My pleasure, man. My pleasure. Yeah, thank you. And this has been The Modern Meltdown, and we're here at OzComicCon 2015. Bye.